Students, welcome to the online class once more. I'm sure you very well remember where we stopped in our last class. So, let us continue. Now I'm reading the next paragraph. The Virgil's face betrayed no sign of embarrassment. The last vicar knew that, sir, he replied. He said it didn't make no difference. He always said there was a great deal too much education in the world for its taste. It's the most amazing thing I ever heard, cried the general. Do you mean to say that you have been Virgil Robbie's church for 16 years and never learned to read or write? I went into service when I was 12, sir. The cook in the first place tried to teach me once, but I didn't seem to have the knack for it. And then what with one thing and another, I never seem to have time. I have never really found the want of it. I think a lot of these young fellows waste a lot of time reading when they might be doing something useful. Explanation. Students, we remember that the new vicar gave a very sad news to Albert Edward Furman in the previous paragraph. He told about his illiteracy. Hearing this news, Albert Edward Foreman did not show any sign of embarrassment. Students, embarrassment is a situation where one fails to think what to do, what not. But here we find that Albert Edward Foreman was not like that. In fact, he continued saying that this was known to the old vicar. That means the old vicar knew about his illiteracy. Foreman said that the old vicar didn't see any difference between a literate person and an illiterate person. Foreman further added that the old vicar used to say that education has a taste of itself, and it is this taste that matters only. People become educated only for the taste of being an educated person. Students, this was a very straightforward attack by Albert Edward Foreman with the support of the old vicar. In other words, he wanted to say that it was not education that mattered for him in St. Peter's Nivelle Square, which was also supported by the old vicar. The new vicar immediately reacted to this and said that he heard the most amazing thing ever. Then he put a very sharp question expressing his annoyance. Annoyance means surprise with fear. He asked Foreman how could he work for 16 years at St. Peter's without being able to read or write. Albert Edward Foreman became a bit serious. Now he went on telling how he wanted to read and write, but the circumstances never allowed him to do so. Foreman said that he was only 12 when he started working. The head cook tried to teach him, but Foreman did not have the skill to read and write. And then things went on, and at a point of time, he became so busy that he could not spare time for study. But students, Foreman here said a very interesting thing. He said that he never had any want of it. In other words, he never felt the need of education in his life, and education never hampered his professional life. Foreman's father said that a lot of reading was only a waste of time. Young fellows should not do that. Instead, they should use that time doing something useful. Now, students, we have to understand the temperament of Albert Edward Foreman. We have got to know that he was an illiterate person and he carried on without any difficulty being so. That is why he could say like that. Next paragraph. But don't you want to know the news? Said the other church warden. Don't you ever want to write a letter? No, my lord. I seem to manage very well without. And of late years, now they have all these pictures in the papers, and I get to know what's going on pretty well. Me wife's quite a scholar, and if I want to write a letter, she writes it for me. It's not as if I was a betting man. Students, this is a very interesting conversation. It is not the vicar now, but one of the church wardens who asked Albert Edward Foreman if he ever wanted to know about the news. Instantly, the church warden put another question: if he ever wanted to write a letter. To this, Albert Edward Foreman said that he managed without knowing the news, and since few years back the newspapers had been showing pictures along with the news, so he could manage to know the news by looking at the pictures. And to the second question about writing a letter, Albert Edward Foreman replied that his wife was a scholar, that means his wife was literate, and she helped him in writing a letter, and he never begged her for any mistake or for any other requirement. Students, the interesting point here is that the charge warden asked a question. We have to understand whether the question was to please the vicar or was a real question for Albert Edward Foreman. It seems as if the question was only to please the new vicar, supporting the significance of education. But Albert very smartly answered the questions. Next paragraph. The two charge wardens gave the vicar a troubled glance and then looked down at the table. Well, Foreman, I have talked the matter over with these gentlemen, and they quite agree with me that the situation is impossible. At a church like St. Peter's Nivelle Square, we cannot have a virgin who can neither read nor write. Albert Edwards' thin, sallow face reddened, and he moved uneasily on his feet, but he made no reply. Understand me, Foreman, I have no complaint to make against you. You do your work quite satisfactorily. I have the highest opinion both of your character and of your capacity, but we haven't the right to take the risk of some accident that might happen owing to your lamentable ignorance. It's a matter of prudence as well as of principle. Students, the answers that Foreman made to the church warden cleared one point again, that Albert Edward Foreman never regretted his not being able to read or write, and he put it in a very straight and simple way. This made the church wardens a bit troubled because they knew that something would happen now. So they looked at the vicar and then down at the table as if they were really helpless. Then the vicar started that it was impossible for a church like St. Peter's Nivelle Square to keep a verger who could neither read nor write. And he also informed that he had talked about the matter with the two church wardens already. This means that the vicar was predetermined to do something. Then Albert Edward Foreman became a thoughtful and his face turned red. But he did not say anything and was trying to stand up uneasily. The vicar once again tried to make Albert Edward Foreman understand his own point of view. He said that he had great respect for him. He did not have any complaint against him for his service in St. Peter's, nor did he have anything to say about his character and his capacity. But the vicar very straightforwardly informed Albert Edward Foreman that they were not ready to take any risk of keeping a verger who did not know how to read and write. He said it was a matter of prudence and principle, meaning it was a matter of cautiousness and rule. So, students, we get here that the vicar was very much particular about the matter. Next paragraph. But can't you learn, Foreman? Asked the general. No, sir. I'm afraid I couldn't. Not now. You see, I'm not as young as I was, and if I couldn't seem able to get the letters in me read when I was a nipper, I don't think there is much chance of it now. We don't want to be harsh with you, Furman, said the vicar, but the church wardens and I have quite made up our minds. We will give you 3 months, and if at the end of that time you cannot read and write, I'm afraid you will have to go. Students, before the vicar could conclude something, he gave a chance to Albert Edward Foreman. He asked if he could now learn how to read and write, and to this, Foreman very straightforwardly said that he could not. Foreman gave reasons for that. He said that he could not do so when he was young and fit to learn, and now it was really impossible for him to do that which he could not do when he was young. Still, the vicar did not want to come to a conclusion so quickly, so he offered Foreman a chance. He said that he and the church wardens had talked over the matter and decided that Foreman would be given a period of 3 months to learn how to read and write, and if he would fail to do so, he would have to leave St. Peter's Naval Square Church. Next paragraph. Albert Edward had never liked the new vicar. He had said from the beginning that they had made a mistake when they gave him St. Peter's. He wasn't the type of man they wanted with a classy congregation like that. And now he straightened himself a little. He knew his value and he wasn't going to allow himself to be put upon. I'm very sorry, sir. I'm afraid it's no good. I'm too old a dog to learn new tricks. I have lived a good many years without knowing how to read and write, and without wishing to praise myself. Self praise is no recommendation. I don't mind saying I have done my duty in that state of life in which it has pleased as merciful providence to place me. And if I could learn now, I don't know as I would want to. Explanation. Students, here we find some remarks of the writer. The writer says that Foreman never liked the new vicar, and after the new vicar joined St. Peter's Naval Square Church, he said they had made a mistake. Here they refers to the people who transferred him from the East End and appointed at St. Peter's. Foreman father said that the new vicar was not a person to be a vicar for the classy people of St. Peter's. And now Foreman seemed to have gathered courage not to allow anyone to dominate him, or he did not want to be pressurized or forced. So he replied the vicar straightforward that he was sorry to comply with the orders of him and said that he was now too old to learn new tricks and he had already spent many years of his life without knowing how to read and write. Foreman further added that he didn't have any wish to be praised for his education and said that God was merciful to him for allowing him to work in a state when he could not learn and he did not know how to read and write. And also that If he could read or write, he did not know what to do in the rest of his life. Students, let us stop here for now and we will be continuing in our next class the rest of the story. It is a very interesting one, and I am sure some of you must have got the book and you can read yourself the story by the time we meet next. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you.